I can fix your eyes, sir." The sentence slipped into the quiet like a pebble into a deep lake. Soft, almost delicate, but impossible to pretend wasn't there. Marcus Hale turned his head toward the voice, though his pale, clouded eyes, long emptied of sight, registered nothing but the same endless dark. Central Heights Park thrummed with a regular Houston afternoon. Leaves whispered, kids shouted near the playground, a far-off car horn blared. His fingers tightened around the cold iron bench. He knew this park by sound, touch, and memory, not sight. It was where Rebecca brought him every day. She claimed the routine lifted his mood, though lately she sounded more distracted than devoted. She'd park him on this same bench, then drift away on calls. The voice, young and female, came from his left. What unsettled him wasn't how she sounded, but when. She had waited. He hadn't noticed her earlier, yet she must have been watching, just out of reach. Maybe she'd been by the tree line or near the chipped lion statue. Only after Rebecca's heels faded down the path did the girl approach, cautious and quiet, like the moment itself was dangerous. "What did you say?" Marcus asked, his pulse unsteady. "I said I can fix your eyes," she repeated, clearer this time. No giggle, no teasing, just calm certainty that he scraped against his disbelief. A dry, crooked smile pulled at his mouth. "You have no idea what's been tried. Surgeries, experimental procedures, labs burned millions. My own company chased solutions for years, and none of it worked. And now you think you can fix this?" "I don't think," she replied. "I know." He angled his head, trying to locate her. She was close now, probably beside him. Small frame, steady, careful breathing. He hadn't heard her walk up. "Why would you say something like that?" She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because I heard her." "Heard who?" "The woman who brings you here," she said softly. "Your wife." Marcus's hands went still on the bench. "I live close," the girl continued. "Sometimes I sleep behind the coffee shop when it rains. I've seen you both coming here for months. She always walks off to talk on the phone, so I listen. I didn't mean to at first, but I did." Her voice lowered again. "She said she did it. She said, 'You're finally blind and I'm close to getting everything.'" Marcus's chest tightened like something brittle and old had finally snapped in two. "I don't know how she pulled it off," the girl said. "But I think she wanted you helpless, maybe gone." I could feel it in the way she talked. Her words trembled, but not from childish fear, more like someone far too young carrying truths meant for adults. Marcus tried to speak, but his mind stalled on jagged fragments of possibility. "I didn't dare say anything when she was here," the girl added. "She scares me. I waited until she left. I had to make sure it was safe first." Marcus leaned back slowly. Through the trees, he caught the faint rhythm of Rebecca's voice in the distance. "Marcus, time to go, honey." The girl stood. He heard worn sneakers brush concrete. "I'll be here tomorrow," she said quietly. "Same time." Then she slipped away as quickly as she'd come. Marcus didn't move, even when Rebecca's familiar perfume swirled closer and her fingers reached for his. His body went with her, but his mind stayed behind, anchored to that small, steady voice that had seen more than his ruined eyes. A tiny ember of hope flickered in his darkness. For the first time in ages, Marcus wondered if maybe he hadn't lost everything. Maybe someone in the world still truly saw him. That thought followed him home like a shadow. Marcus Hale didn't sleep that night. He sat in his leather armchair, wrapped in a darkness that didn't fade when he closed his eyes. His penthouse overlooked Houston's glowing skyline he couldn't see. The silence was too complete. No sound from Rebecca. She hadn't returned to their shared bedroom after he'd said he was tired, just left a note. "Late call. Sleep well, Em." He hadn't answered. Instead, he sat with his hands steepled, palms sweating. A strange feeling for a man who once directed billions in assets with a few decisive words, never doubting his authority. He'd never felt powerless back then. Now, he was forced to consider that the deepest betrayal of his life might have unfolded right in front of his blind eyes, and he'd simply never noticed. Morning routines didn't change. Rebecca helped him dress, her touch efficient but hollow. She mentioned a lunch with senior partners, apologized for needing to step away, then walked him out. Her tone was perfectly rehearsed. In the hallway, her heels clicked cleanly over marble. He said nothing. In the car, the silence stretched. At the park, she guided him to the bench with practiced ease. "Back in a bit, sweetheart," she chimed, then headed toward her usual talking spot near the hedge. Marcus listened carefully. No sign of the girl. Not yet. He waited, heart pounding steadily. He counted slowly, seconds, then minutes. Birds chirped, air rustled through branches. A child shrieked in delighted protest somewhere nearby. Then light footsteps approached, too soft for heavy shoes, careful like someone used to being overlooked. "You came back," he said, trying to hide the relief in his voice. "I told you I would," she answered. Her tone made it sound as simple as breathing. "What's your name?" he asked. "Liana," she said. The name felt warm and grounded on his tongue. "How long have you been watching us?" "A while," she said with unbothered honesty. No shame, just facts laid on the table. "I thought she still cared about me," Marcus murmured. "Maybe she did," Liana replied. "Once, but now she's planning something. I heard her talking about a lawyer, waiting for your board to doubt you. She said once they think you're not capable, she'll take everything." Marcus exhaled slowly through his nose. "I knew something was off," he said. "I felt it. Hearing you say it changes everything." She shifted beside him on the bench. "I don't want anything from you," Liana said. "I just wanted to warn you. You should at least know what she's doing behind your back." "I appreciate that," Marcus said, the gratitude real. There was a pause. Then Liana added quietly, "And I meant what I said yesterday about helping you." "You're, 12? Maybe 13? He asked. "What makes you think you can help a blind man?" He meant it light, but it came out harsher. "I don't mean doctors," she said. "I don't have machines or pills or lab coats. Sometimes I just feel things. I know things about people. When I touch someone, sometimes something shifts. I think that's why I knew she was lying. I didn't just hear it. I felt it." Her tone wasn't dramatic. It was stubbornly honest. Marcus didn't laugh, though he wanted to dismiss it as make-believe. Something in her voice kept him from doing that. She believed every word. "I've felt people change before," she said. "But never someone like you." "Like me?" "Sad," she whispered, "but still waiting for something." Marcus swallowed hard. "You could leave," she added. "You're rich. Just disappear." "I can't just vanish, Liana. There are contracts, a board, a reputation, and I can't see. That makes everyone nervous." "You're scared," she said, without cruelty. He didn't argue. Silence answered for him. After a moment, she stood. "I don't know if I'll come tomorrow. She's starting to look around more." "Wait," he said, reaching out. He missed at first, then found her hand, warm and real. If you don't come back, I won't know what to do." She didn't reply at once. "Before we keep going, imagine you're watching this scene somewhere in the world. Drop a comment about where you are, and hit like for the brave, sharp girl at the center of this story." Liana finally whispered, "Then I'll come, but you have to be ready. Not just to see, but to actually believe." And like the day before, she slipped away before Rebecca's perfume drifted through the air. That night, Marcus didn't head straight back upstairs. He told the driver to take the long way home. Ending near an old bayou bridge, engine off, city noise muted to a distant hum. He sat alone with the quiet. Not the empty quiet of wealth, but the kind that sits with your choices. He thought of Liana, of her nerve, her strange, grounded wisdom. He remembered when Rebecca used to hold his hand like that. Before the money, before the boardrooms, before ambition filed love down into routine. He touched his useless eyes and wondered if blindness had revealed more. Maybe he hadn't truly seen in years, long before the so-called accident. He'd walked blind toward his own downfall. Now, a homeless teenager with nothing had handed him something he didn't know he'd lost. Perspective. Marcus woke with a tremor in his chest the next morning. Not panic exactly, something deeper, like an old memory pressing against the surface. Liana's voice echoed, "Be ready, not just to see." She'd said it like it was ordinary, like healing a blind man depended more on trust than on medicine. Morning moved on like any other. Rebecca served his coffee, his eggs, his slightly burned toast. She chatted breezily about brunch with executives, then a quick visit to a law firm. Her tone was light, heels ticking in sync with her words. He wondered how long she'd practiced sounding so natural. "Want me to take you to the park again?" she asked, lifting toast to his lips. Marcus paused. "Yes," he said smoothly. "It's good for me." She shifted, as if surprised by his easy agreement. The drive was silent. He listened to her fingers tapping at her phone, the faint buzz of incoming messages. Her expensive perfume felt too sweet now, floral and fake. It made his stomach tighten. At the park, she guided him out, placed his cane beside him, and kissed his cheek. "Back soon," she murmured. He waited until her footsteps faded past the fountain. "You here, Liana?" he asked. He didn't expect an immediate answer, but after a few beats, a quiet "yeah" drifted over. She'd been watching again, waiting. "Didn't know you'd come," he said. "Didn't know either," she replied. But she kept checking her watch. She never stays long. Just enough to make a few calls and be seen, Liana added. Marcus adjusted his posture, gripping the bench. "You said you feel when people change. How does that even work?" Liana sat beside him. He heard her thin jacket crinkle. "I don't know," she said. "It's like there's a light inside people. Some glow bright, some dim, some flicker, some just feel cold. You," she continued carefully, "feel quiet but steady, like someone buried your light under a lot of dust." Marcus let out a soft laugh. "Dust sounds about right," he said. His chest ached with reluctant agreement. She scooted closer. "Do you remember before the accident, before all this, when you were actually happy?" The question hit like an old song, familiar and painful all at once. "I'm not sure," he admitted. "I remember pieces, laughing with my son when he was little. Rebecca, back when we were real. Work that felt like building something, not just feeding a machine." "You miss that?" she asked. "Yeah." Silence stretched between them. "If you could see again, what's the first thing you'd do?" He tilted his head, honestly considering. "I used to think I'd dive back into numbers, watch the markets, run meetings," he said. "Now, I think I'd rather see people's faces, just to see if they match what they say. Sometimes faces lie, too, Liana murmured. But yours doesn't, does it? He asked. She didn't answer. Instead, she said, "Can I show you something? Not to look at, just to feel." She took his hand, turned it palm up, and placed something inside. Small, round, cold at first. A thin cord brushed his fingers. He explored its rough surface, tracing the wrap around it. "A stone?" he guessed. "Kind of," she said. "From the creek under the bayou bridge. I wrap them and give them to people who seem lost. Something to hold when everything feels too big." He squeezed it gently. "It's beautiful." "You can't see it," she said. "Don't need to," he replied. She smiled. He heard it in her breath. Then Rebecca's voice rang out, bright and firm. "Marcus, ready to go?" Liana whispered. "Don't tell her about me, not yet. She's not ready for what you know now." He gave a small nod. Liana slipped away before Rebecca reached the bench. "Have a nice time?" Rebecca asked, a hand on his shoulder. Marcus forced a faint smile. "Yeah, I did." She sounded pleased. "Good, I'll cook tonight. Something easy, maybe steak?" "Sure," he said. But all he truly felt was the stone warming in his pocket and the echo of a teenager's voice that understood him better than the woman he'd loved for 30 years. That night, Marcus stood at the window, facing the smear of city lights he knew but couldn't see. "I think I'm starting to believe," he whispered to the glass. To no one at all. It rained the next morning. A steady, gray drizzle that blurred the skyline and softened the city's edges. Rebecca grumbled about her suede shoes while yanking an umbrella from the closet. Marcus just listened. He heard the wet hiss of tires, the hollow echo of the elevator, the clipped annoyance in her voice. She buckled his seatbelt with polite care, barely talking during the drive to the park. When they arrived, she hesitated. "It's wet. Want to skip today?" "No," Marcus answered too quickly. "I'd rather go." A beat of silence. "All right, just don't get sick," she said, almost convincing. She wiped off the bench with a cloth from her bag, set his cane beside him. 15 minutes, she said, then walked off, umbrella tapping lightly against her shoulder like a metronome. Marcus sat in the drizzle, feeling the chill sink into his clothes. He didn't care. He slipped a hand into his coat pocket, fingers curling around the wrapped stone. The texture grounded him. Footsteps approached, careful and light, dodging puddles. "You came," he said. "I promised," Liana replied. "Besides, rain slows people down, makes it easier to stay invisible." He smiled faintly. "You're clever." She slid onto the bench. For a while, they listened to the rain tapping leaves and stone. Then Liana asked, "Can I ask something weird?" "Stranger than fixing a blind man?" he joked. She giggled. "Fair point." She hesitated. "Have you ever felt light? Not seen it, felt it. Like warmth in your chest, moving through you, even when your eyes are closed," he thought. "Maybe once," he said. "When my son was born, I held him, and something cracked open inside like sunshine through a window I didn't know was there." Liana nodded slowly. "That's it," she said. He didn't ask how she understood that feeling so clearly. He just accepted she did. "Some people carry more of that light," she added quietly. "Some lose it, some never find it." There was old sadness in her voice. "You're wrong about yourself," Marcus said. "You carry more light than you think." The bench creaked as she leaned closer. "Your wife," Liana said carefully. "She's not just taking your company. She's scared of you getting better." Marcus's throat tightened. "Why?" "Because if you do, you might walk away." Liana answered. The thought had already crept into his mind, uninvited. Not revenge, clarity. Waking up. "Liana," he said, "what do you want out of this?" She was quiet for several beats. "I don't know," she said finally. "Maybe I just want to matter to somebody, even for a little while." "You do," he said firmly. She nodded, though he couldn't see it. She reached for his hand. "I want to try something. Trust me." He offered his hand without hesitation. She wrapped both of hers around it, gentle but steady. "Close your eyes," she said. He almost laughed, but obeyed. "Breathe. Think about that moment with your son, the light you felt." The rain blurred into background noise as something inside him slowly loosened. The world went quieter. Not empty, just softer. He didn't feel heat exactly, but presence, like his body remembered being whole. When he opened his useless eyes, tears slipped down his cheeks. "I didn't see anything," he whispered, "but I felt calm, peace maybe." "That's a start," Liana said. He squeezed her hand. "Thank you." She stood abruptly. "I gotta go, she's watching today." Marcus's head turned. "How do you know?" "I can feel her," Liana said. "Her light flickers whenever I'm close. It goes cold." Then she disappeared into the rain. Moments later, Rebecca stormed back. "You're soaked," she scolded. "Why didn't you call?" He stayed quiet. She wrapped a blanket around him. "You'll get pneumonia out here," she muttered, more annoyed than concerned. He leaned into her out of habit, asking softly, "Rebecca, why don't you ever sit with me anymore?" She paused, just long enough. "You need your quiet," she said quickly. "Time to think." He nodded, but the doubt had already rooted itself. Not just doubt, understanding. And the girl who'd planted it carried more light than anyone he'd met in years. Marcus had never really thought about how he walked before. One foot, then the other, driven by purpose. After losing his sight, each step became deliberate, measured, a careful negotiation with gravity and pride. That morning, something felt different. A subtle hum in his chest, a quiet pull forward. Maybe it was what happened with Liana in the rain, that strange peace that had cracked something loose. He woke wanting more than to sit on a bench and wait. He wanted to move, to feel the park under his feet again. In the car, Rebecca barely spoke, tension stretched thin. At the park, she helped him out. "Same bench?" she asked. "No," he said. "I want to walk." She hesitated. "It's still damp. You sure?" "I am." Her fingers pressed his shoulder once, then withdrew. "Don't go far. I'll be by the hedge." He nodded, then took a step. The path was uneven from buried tree roots and age. He moved carefully, probing with his cane, cataloging sound, cooing pigeons, rustling branches, a distant scrap of some kid humming. He leaned toward that faint singing, and then a toddler shrieked nearby. Startled, Marcus misjudged the ground. His cane slipped into a deepie between stones. His weight lurched sideways. Pain erupted as his wrist hit hard, his hip smashing the concrete step's edge. Breath tore from his lungs. Blood touched his tongue. The sting, the humiliation, the brutal reminder that no matter what stirred inside, his body was still vulnerable, blind, and painfully breakable. "Mr. Hale!" A familiar young voice cut through the noise. Small hands touched his back, then his arm. "Don't move yet," Liana said. "I saw you fall. I was headed your way." "I'm fine," he muttered. "You're not," she insisted, surprisingly calm. "Your hand's bleeding. Your wrist looks bad. Let me help you sit up." She guided him with practiced care, steady and patient. He leaned against the cold base of an old war monument, breathing shallow. "Didn't see the drop," he said bitterly. Stupid mistake. You didn't see anything, she answered. That's not stupid. That's just real. He gave a rough chuckle. You're too blunt for your age, and you're too proud for yours. That landed harder than the fall. She pressed a folded cloth from her sleeve against his palm. This needs cleaning, maybe stitches. I can call someone. No time, she said quickly. She's coming. Marcus turned his head. Rebecca? I heard her. She's looking for you. Sure enough, heels pounded the path. Marcus! Oh my God, what happened? Liana slipped away behind a nearby bench. Marcus straightened despite the pain. I tripped, he said. Misjudged the edge. Rebecca dropped beside him. You shouldn't walk by yourself. I told you. This path wasn't safe. I needed to move, he answered evenly. We're going home, she declared. Now. This is too much. I should have hired someone, she muttered. He swallowed his reply. She helped him up, his hip screaming. He leaned harder on the cane than he wanted. We'll swing by Dr. Hanley's clinic, she said. No, Marcus said. Take me home. She hesitated. But you're home, he repeated. Her silence spoke volumes. Back in the car, he held the bloodied cloth, staring blindly forward. He knew she'd use this, turn his fall into proof. Another exhibit in her case that he was weak, incompetent, unfit to lead anything. Not his company, his fortune, maybe not even himself. But something had shifted again, not shattered, realigned like a bone setting. Later, while Rebecca whispered into the phone somewhere upstairs, Marcus sat alone in his study, fingers tracing the keys of an old drawer. He pulled out a digital recorder he hadn't touched in over a year, pressed the button. This is Marcus Hale, he said quietly. If I'm ever declared incapable, I want this recorded. I have lost my sight, he continued, but not my mind, not my will. He paused, breath steadying. And I'm not alone. There's a girl named Liana. She's not a delusion. She's more real to me than anyone else right now. He stopped the recording, slid it into the drawer. From his coat he pulled the wrapped stone and held it, letting its shape steady him. The fall had hurt, but it had taught him something. Falling wasn't the real failure. Refusing to get back up was. He wasn't done getting up yet. By morning, the rain had gone, leaving that damp earth smell that reminded Marcus of childhood, his grandfather's farm in Kentucky, early mornings that felt wide and simple and safe. The memory comforted him. Rebecca left early, calling it an emergency board meeting. No mention of his fall. No soft goodbye. Just heels, a closing door, and the hollow echo of someone already halfway gone. Marcus replayed her murmured phone conversation in his head. Her saying the fall helped, that he wasn't fighting yet, that she needed 2 more weeks. It sounded like a countdown to something sharp and final. She was preparing her move. He was preparing his. Dressing himself took twice as long, every pull near his ribs painful, but he did it anyway. His shoes didn't quite match. He didn't care. When the driver, Luis, pulled up, Marcus felt his way down the steps with his cane. Luis jumped out to help. I've got it, Marcus said. Just take me to Central Heights West Side. He arrived early. The park was quiet, the city still waking. He found the bench, easing down carefully, turning his face toward the warm morning sun. No Rebecca, no Liana, just breathing room. Eventually, soft footsteps approached. You're early, Liana said. So are you, he answered. I don't sleep much, she admitted. He smiled. Didn't sleep at all, he said. She sat, the air shifted. Heard about the fall, she said. You saw it? Yeah. Why'd you run? She scares me, Liana whispered. Your wife's light is angry, sharp. Marcus nodded. She's trying to take everything. Then we stop her, Liana said. Sounds simple, he replied. Not simple, she corrected. Just necessary. She slipped something into his hand. A thin chain, a heavy round pendant, letters etched deep. What's this? He asked. Saint Lucy Medal, she said. Patron saint of the blind. It was my grandma's. She said it helped her find her way. Now it's yours. Marcus chuckled softly. You sound like you're giving a closing statement in court. Liana grinned. Been practicing, she said. He eased onto the low stone ledge beside her, settling carefully. I'll start writing it all tonight, he said. Every memory that matters. Every lie I swallowed because I wanted to believe her. Liana nodded. That's step one. Truth always begins with memory. They fell quiet, listening to the wind moving through the tall hedges. The world hushed except for a bird's sharp call and the distant whir of a lawnmower somewhere behind the trees. Do you think she ever really loved me? Marcus asked suddenly. Liana thought before answering. Maybe, but some people hear power louder than love. They forget themselves chasing what they think they deserve. He nodded slowly. I turned into a roadblock in her empire, he murmured. Just an inconvenience to rearrange or remove. Liana stood, shoulders straight. Then remind her the man she tried erasing is still here. Marcus smiled, not bitter this time, but determined. He wasn't finished, not even close. That evening, as the sky shifted from dull gray to violet, he stood at his study window, palm against cool glass. He couldn't see the sunset, but he could feel warmth sliding away from the city. Behind him, the penthouse was unsettlingly quiet. Rebecca hadn't returned, which was becoming normal. Excuses thinner each week. He welcomed the silence now. It left space to write. On his desk, 3 sheets already lay filled with his narrow, slanted handwriting. His hand ached, but his memory flowed clearer than expected. He'd written about the early years with Rebecca, the charm, ambition, nights spent building the company side by side. Then the shift. Sharper tones, subtle dismissals, control exerted in gentle, constant pressure. Like water sculpting stone, it happened so slowly, he couldn't pinpoint when he stopped pushing back. He paused, fingertips resting on the paper's edge, then picked up the pen again and let the past surface. It was the evening of the shareholder gala, he wrote. She wore red, alarm red. I was dizzy, seeing double, head-splitting. She said I was overtired, then I collapsed the next morning. That's when everything started unraveling. She never suggested a real evaluation, just pushed me toward the specialist she chose. His breath hitched. A knock tapped at the door. He turned, expecting empty hallway. Instead, a composed voice drifted in. Marcus, can I come in? Rebecca. He hesitated. Home early, he said. Thought I'd check on you, she answered, stepping inside. Your light's still on. Her footsteps muffled on carpet. She stopped short of the desk. Journaling? She asked. Reflection, Marcus replied lightly. Long overdue. She tilted her head. Feeling any better? I feel clearer, he answered. That's something. Good, she said quickly. Clarity matters. He stayed silent. She moved closer. I've been worried, she murmured. Ever since you fell, you've seemed uneasy. You mean since I stopped swallowing everything I'm told? He asked. She didn't visibly react, but her breath paused half a beat. I've always done what's best for you, she insisted. No, he said calmly. You've always done what's best for you and sold it as mutual. She stepped back, arms folding. Is this our new normal, accusations and drama? No, Marcus replied. From here on, it's facts, proof, and decisions. She narrowed her eyes. You don't have the stamina for this. You're right, he said. I didn't, but someone loaned it back to me. Her brows drew together. A girl, he added. You'd never notice her. That's your blind spot. Threats without business cards. You're being manipulated, she snapped. No, he answered. I'm finally awake. Her polished expression cracked just a fraction. I'll make tea, she muttered, turning away. You need rest. When the door shut, Marcus exhaled, hands trembling faintly. He reached for the phone, dialing a secure number. Walker picked up on the second ring. She suspects something, Marcus said. She's guessing, Walker replied. Let her. Just stay careful. She's trying to lull me, Marcus said. When she thinks I'm soothed, she'll strike. Then we keep leading, Walker answered. Naomi's injunction is ready. You signing tomorrow? First thing, Marcus said. Good, and Liana. Tougher than we realize. Walker gave a short laugh. Isn't she always? He said. Record everything, even fake kindness. Already did, Marcus replied. Tonight's talk, solid gold. He hung up and slid the recorder deeper into the drawer beside the sealed pill cup. This file would be tagged Tea Talk, a domestic scene layered with warning. Downstairs, the kettle screamed. Marcus didn't move. Instead, he opened the drawer again and took out the St. Lucie medal, thumb tracing the cool engraved surface slowly. He no longer needed eyes to recognize Rebecca for who she'd become. The next morning, Marcus sat across from Naomi Price. The injunction documents were printed, notarized, stacked in neat, dangerous order. Once we file, she warned, expect backlash. She'll fight ugly. I've met ugly, Marcus said. I'm finished accommodating it. Naomi handed him another folder. Your personal statement to the board. Learn it. Own it. Judging by her counterplay, she added, she'll try to frame you as unstable, confused, paranoid. Any slip helps her. I won't give her one, he said. Naomi's mouth curved slightly. Good. We're all in now. Marcus left her office with a heavy sort of calm. Not hope, not fear, just gravity. The weight a man accepts when he quits retreating and chooses to stand where the impact will land. That afternoon at the park, Liana waited with 2 small paper cups of ice cream. You look different, she said, handing him the swirl. That's because I am, he replied. She studied his face. She knows you're not sleeping through this anymore. Yeah, he said. The first move was mine. They sat in the warm light, breathing in sync, sharing charged silence. She'll come at you, Liana said quietly. Hard. I'm counting on it, Marcus replied. Are you ready? She asked. He tasted the ice cream, then smiled. More than I've ever been. By midday next day, the injunction was filed, the board notified. Rebecca's hidden accounts were frozen pending fraud review. Within hours, the house changed, not physically, but in tension, tone, and careful footsteps. Staff moved quieter. Conversations clipped. Glances shorter. Marcus felt the shift like a storm front rolling in, pressure building before thunder. Rebecca didn't return until the sky outside leaned toward orange. He heard the car in the drive. A door slammed harder than usual, heels hammering up the steps. The front door opened and closed with more force than necessary. Marcus stayed in the study, waiting. She entered without knocking. She never did. So, she said from the doorway. Calm voice, rushed breathing. You've made your play. Marcus set his pen down, fingers lacing. I ran out of alternatives, he answered. She stepped in, closing the door more quietly this time. You think you've won? She asked. No, he said. I think I stopped bleeding. That's enough for now. She crossed the room, heels sinking into thick carpet. You don't grasp what you've done, she hissed. Freezing those funds, dragging lawyers and auditors into our business. You've exposed us both. I exposed you, Marcus corrected. Her gaze sharpened. You really believe the board favors you, a half-blind man supposedly deteriorating for months? Better me, he replied, than the woman funneling company money into shadows. She leaned closer, voice almost gentle. Marcus, I've tried to protect you. No, he said. You tried to sideline me. That's different. She straightened. What now? Court battles, headlines, you'll destroy our legacy. I built it, he told her. You tried to bury it for yourself. Her eyes narrowed. You really think anyone will buy your version? He slid open the drawer and tapped the recorder. He pressed play. Her recorded voice filled the room, controlled, coaxing, subtly steering. Not a smoking gun, but a pattern. Rebecca froze. There's more, Marcus said softly. She stared, then pivoted and left without a word. He stayed seated long after the door clicked. Not because he was frightened, but because she hadn't denied anything. Not once. Later that night, Liana called from a borrowed phone. She met with the board chair, Liana whispered. And that slick lawyer, Cole? Neither looked happy leaving. She say anything? Marcus asked. No, but Cole's face? He looked like he wanted to punch something, Liana said. It's starting, Marcus murmured. You holding up? I have to, she replied. Next morning, Naomi called. She's filing her own motion, Naomi said briskly. Claiming your decline started long ago. Fatigue, memory problems, paranoia. We expected this. We're preparing affidavits. Liana's statement will matter. When do I face the board? Marcus asked. Tomorrow, noon, Naomi replied. He exhaled. You sure you want to do this solo? She asked. I can present for you. No, he said. They need my voice. That night he barely slept. He walked through his speech again and again, every line, every pause. But more than words, he rehearsed the feeling. Conviction, not desperation. He wasn't just saving a company, he was reclaiming himself. The next day, Luis drove him to headquarters. The building's steel and glass hadn't changed, but Marcus walked differently. Calm, steady, back straight, head high with earned resolve. Inside the boardroom, the long oval table gleamed. 12 chairs filled. Rebecca sat at the far end, Cole Ramsey at her side. Naomi Price stood behind Marcus, a quiet force. The chairwoman cleared her throat. Mr. Hale, you may begin. Marcus stood, one hand resting lightly on his chair. His voice came out firm, clear. I've been quiet for months, he began. Partly because of illness, partly because I trusted the wrong people to speak in my place. That ends now. He paused, turning his blind gaze toward Rebecca's end of the table. Someone I loved has worked in secret to have me declared unfit. Not because I am, but because my presence complicates her ambition. Rebecca's jaw flexed. She built her narrative from manipulated evidence, sedative medication, and my silence, Marcus continued. But I've reclaimed my voice and I'm using it. He turned back to the board, shoulders squared. I may not see, but I perceive more clearly now than ever, he said. What I perceive is a pattern of betrayal, corruption, and a quiet theft of what we built. He presented the recordings, the financial trails, Naomi's summaries, and Liana's account. The overheard conversations, the sinister delight at his failing vision. He ended with, "I didn't choose this fight, but I choose not to surrender. This company and my name deserve integrity." The room held its breath. Finally, the chairwoman spoke. "We'll deliberate and notify you within 48 hours. Rebecca didn't glance at him as he left. Outside, Marcus turned his face toward the sunlight, lungs filling deeply. He didn't know their decision, but he knew this. He'd finally stood up. 2 days dragged by under the weight of waiting. Marcus stayed mostly in his study, alternating between dictating notes into the recorder and letting old jazz records spin, saxophones smoothing the sharp edges of his thoughts. The music no longer background noise. It felt like company. Liana visited each afternoon, saying little, needing even less. She sketched or hummed while he sat. Her presence reminded him of something sturdy. She never asked if he was scared. She knew. Once, as the sky darkened, she asked only, "If they say no, what happens?" Marcus thought. "Then I start again," he answered quietly. "Even if starting again means walking away?" She pushed gently. He turned toward her voice. "Justice isn't always winning," he said. "Sometimes it's making sure the truth is spoken before silence returns." That night, Rebecca didn't come home. No calls, no explanations, only absence. Strangely, the house felt larger, lighter, like it had finally exhaled. On the third morning before breakfast, Naomi's number lit his phone. "They voted," she said without preamble. "Close, 6-5, in your favor." Marcus closed his eyes. "I keep control?" "You keep everything," she said. "They're investigating Rebecca. She's suspended from all authority. Ramsey, too." He let the words sink in. "Thank you," he murmured. "Don't throw a parade yet," Naomi added. "This isn't the finale. She might go public. She might sue. But the narrative changed. You're no longer the confused relic." "I never was," Marcus said. "Now they know." After hanging up, he walked to the front parlor and sat. Morning light poured through tall windows, stretching long shadows. He didn't feel victorious exactly. He felt grounded, solid, like the spinning had stopped beneath his feet. Liana arrived half an hour later, already smiling as she burst through the door. "You heard?" she asked. "I did," he said. She rushed forward and hugged him without asking. He stiffened for an instant, then wrapped his arms around her. "You did it," she breathed. "No," he corrected gently. "We did." They celebrated with vanilla milkshakes and grilled cheese delivered from a nearby diner that had stood since the 60s. Marcus hadn't eaten from there in decades, but Liana insisted it was the only fitting choice. "Old place, warm food, no fancy silverware," she said, grinning, as they sat on the back patio while the city hummed in the distance. "Feels right. I'm not finished," Marcus said quietly. "There's more I want to do." "Like what?" she asked. "A foundation for kids like you, sharp, invisible, left behind. Resources that make them impossible to ignore." Her eyes widened. "You're serious?" "Completely," he said. "We'll call it the light we carry." Liana's smile crinkled her nose. "I get to help name it?" "You just did," he replied. That evening, Rebecca finally reappeared. No door slams, no shouting, just quiet footsteps, muted heels. She found Marcus in the study, exactly where she expected him. "Congratulations," she said, arms crossed. "Thank you," he replied. She didn't sit, just watched him. "You won this round," she said, "but you burned every bridge." "No," he answered. "I rebuilt mine. You just didn't notice you'd been cut off." "You really think you're better than me?" she demanded. "I think I finally remember who I am," he said. and I prefer this version to the man who stayed silent for your comfort." After a beat, she asked, "What now?" "You leave," he said simply. "The board's begun formal action. Legal notices go out tomorrow. This house, this lifestyle, they're no longer yours." She stared, jaw clenched. "You're not the man I married." "True," he said. "I'm finally the man I was supposed to be." She turned and walked out. This time, when the door closed, he didn't flinch. No echo, no trembling air, just stillness settling into place. That night before sleep, he recorded another entry. "This is Marcus Hale," he said. "I once mistook silence for strength, endurance for dignity. Now I know real strength is standing up when everyone expects collapse. My story isn't over. It finally belongs to me again." He clicked the recorder off and, for the first time in months, slept deeply. Rain returned gently, like a soft apology from the sky, soaking Central Heights Park where everything started. Marcus stood beneath a broad oak near the west bench, a place that once felt like exile. Now he wasn't alone. Liana stood beside him, umbrella overhead, sneakers damp from puddles but unfazed. She handed him a crumpled blue ribbon, silk frayed at the ends. "What's this?" he asked, turning it between his fingers. "My mom's," she said. "She swore it gave her courage on the worst days. I figure it's your turn to borrow it." His voice caught briefly. He swallowed. "Thank you," he whispered. That day quietly marked the launch of the Light We Carry Foundation. Their first outreach at a struggling community center almost shuddered from lack of funding. Liana had insisted they begin there. "Place has good bones," she'd said. She was right. The building was modest, walls cracked, floors creaking, but the air buzzed with possibility and nervous excitement. Kids from all over the neighborhood arrived, drawn by flyers, free snacks, and something harder to name: hope. Marcus entered with Luisa's help. Cane more symbolic now than essential, shoulders squared. When he stepped inside, the chatter dimmed, then applause rose, not frantic, not forced, just genuine. Naomi stood near a makeshift podium, clipboard tucked under her arm, flanked by local officials and 3 teachers. She greeted him with a warm smile. "You're early," she said. "Couldn't stay away," he answered. She nodded toward the back wall where a hand-painted banner hung. "The Light We Carry, uplifting hidden voices." His name was below it, but so was Liana's in slightly smaller script, just as bold. "Ready to make it official?" Naomi asked, guiding him to the podium. He adjusted the microphone, fingertips brushing cool metal. "Not long ago," he began, "I thought my story was finished. I felt erased from the life I'd built. Then a stranger, barely tall enough to reach a counter, reminded me stories can restart. They bend, fracture, and if we're lucky, begin again." He heard Liana's breath hitch in the front row. "This foundation isn't about redemption," he continued. "It's about recognition. For every kid treated like background noise, for every voice muted by poverty, disability, race, or neglect, we're here to say, we see you, we hear you, you matter." Applause swelled, louder this time, echoing off worn walls. Marcus stepped back and gestured toward Liana. She shuffled up, equal parts nervous and proud, and gripped the microphone. "I don't have a fancy speech," she said. "I'm not famous, I'm not even tall." Soft laughter rippled through the room. "But I know what invisible feels like," she said, "and I know what it means when somebody finally sees you. Mr. Hale saw me and let me help. That's what this is about, helping each other, even when we think we can't." The applause now felt like thunder. Liana flushed and retreated to Marcus's side. He leaned down and murmured, "You stole my speech." Good, she whispered. Yours was too long anyway. They spent the rest of the day shaking hands, meeting kids, signing papers, and watching the center resurrect. Music played. Laughter bounced off the walls. In that whirl of noise, Marcus felt something open inside, a kind of healing he hadn't realized he still needed. That evening, after the last guests left and the rain finally stopped, Marcus and Liana stood on the front steps. The sky glowed orange and purple. Wet pavement gleamed like glass. "Ever miss who you were before?" she asked quietly. Marcus considered. "No," he said, "but I respect him. He survived long enough to let me find who I am now." "He'd be proud," she said. Marcus smiled. "I think so." Someone had left a bouquet of white lilies wrapped in newspaper. A small note was tucked inside, written in neat, looping hand. "You found the light. Thank you for carrying it forward." Marcus had Liana read it aloud twice. He touched the paper gently, then straightened. "Let's keep going," he said. She grinned. "We've got more stories to rewrite." Together, they descended the steps. Not just survivors of a quiet war, but architects of a new legacy. The next week felt like stepping into full daylight. Marcus walked through hallways that once echoed with emptiness and found them buzzing. Folders labeled Foundation stacked on tables. New emails proposing partnerships. A photographer at the door asking to document their work. Closed doors swung open, but every bright opportunity cast a shadow. One morning, Liana arrived with a bundle of art supplies. "Kids want to paint their dreams," she declared. "We're starting a mural series." Marcus loved the idea. He guided her inside, hand brushing the familiar post at the stairway that once grounded him during his worst days. In the kitchen, they spread plans across the table. The metal rested beneath his collar. The recorder sat untouched nearby. Rebecca hadn't returned since that earlier chapter of their lives. Her absence felt like a hollow outline, but tension still hummed underneath. Naomi had warned Rebecca might go public, twist the story, or stage a fake reconciliation. Nothing yet, but Marcus stayed braced. That afternoon, he received a letter in a hand he recognized immediately, his son. In this version of their story, his name was Aaron. The words were brief, careful. "Dad, I heard about the foundation. I'm proud. Can we talk? Coffee? Same place as before." Marcus's fingers trembled over the page. Their relationship had been strained for a long time, fractured by silence and half-truths. This letter was a tentative hand reaching across a very wide gap. He sat with it for a long moment, then exhaled and decided. He'd say yes. That evening, he met Naomi at her office. The mood was serious but forward-looking. "She's filed a counterclaim," Naomi said. "Emotional distress, loss of companionship, defamation. She's chasing sympathy." Marcus rubbed his forehead. "Expected," he said. "She's also lining up interviews," Naomi continued. "One outlet wants her exclusive." "Devoted wife blindsided by accusations," Marcus muttered. "Let's offer them something better. Our story, Liana's voice, if she's willing." Naomi considered, then nodded. "Public radio segment, right audience, right tone. I'll arrange it." That night, Marcus wrote his first letter to Aaron in years, agreeing to coffee, keeping his words simple. "Yes, same cafe tomorrow." He felt both nervous and strangely hopeful. Morning came crisp and cool. Marcus waited at their old table by the window. Kane leaned nearby. When Aaron arrived, familiar caution sat in his features, along with something new, respect, or at least curiosity. They talked about the foundation, about Liana, about how you mend from betrayal. Aaron confessed grief over his mother's secrets, guilt for not seeing sooner, and pride that his father had chosen to stand. Marcus listened more than he spoke. He didn't excuse, but he didn't rewrite history either. They agreed to rebuild slowly, honestly. Their handshake at the end felt like rewriting years of distance. Later, at the foundation site, Marcus listened as kids dabbed brushes into paint. Liana directed color across a once blank wall, bright blues, fire oranges, faces emerging. She painted a girl with a ribbon beside a man with a medal. Their story translated into color. Marcus felt moisture burn at the edges of his eyes. Sight wasn't required to recognize beauty. Naomi slipped in quietly. "Radio spots scheduled," she said. "Liana's ready." "Let everyone hear us," Marcus said. Days later, they recorded the segment. Liana spoke about darkness and trust, about being unseen and daring to help someone see. Marcus spoke of betrayal, faith, and slow justice. Listeners would hear no bitterness in his tone, only clarity. A week after airing, the board chair called. "Internal review confirms misconduct," she said. "Rebecca has resigned. Ramsey, too. Formal proceedings will follow." The foundation stood untouched, growing. On the final night of that chapter, twilight settled over the patio as Marcus and Liana sat exhausted but steady. He tied her blue ribbon around the St. Lucie Metals chain. She watched intently. "That's perfect," she said. He felt a quiet pride swell. "You didn't just pull me out of a hole," he told her. "You helped build the ladder." She shrugged, but her eyes shone. "We built it," she said. He tapped the ribbon lightly. "Together." "Always," she answered. Outside, the world rotated. But underneath metal, ribbon, and scarred hearts, light kept expanding. The first real calm in weeks arrived just after midnight. Marcus sat in his study, city lights a distant glow. Papers and emails about the foundation covered his desk like a second skyline. The quiet didn't feel empty anymore. It thrummed with promise. He thought about resilience in small things, Liana's grin, the fluttering ribbon, the mural's bright faces. Real change didn't demand spectacle. It demanded consistency. The next morning, news crept through the community. A neglected elementary school downtown was closing. Budget cuts, declining enrollment, children being scattered. Marcus felt a familiar ache and something stronger, responsibility. He called Naomi. "That school needs us," he said, "today." Within hours, the light. We Carry pivoted, meetings arranged, volunteers rallied, funding proposals rushed. Their mission was stretching, roots pushing deeper. That night, as Marcus, Liana, and Aaron stood beneath the glowing mural, ribbon fluttering against the metal, they stepped out into the dark together. Steady. Whatever waited ahead, the light they carried would keep going. It's never too late to see the truth. If you're in your 60s or 70s, you know that life doesn't always go the way we pictured it when we were young. Bodies slow down, eyesight fades, loved ones change, and sometimes the people we trusted most turn into strangers. Marcus Hale's story begins in that kind of late-life darkness. A powerful businessman, now blind, being parked on a bench like a forgotten piece of furniture while his wife strolls off to make calls. To anyone who has ever felt pushed to the side after retirement, or treated like they're no longer needed, his quiet humiliation feels painfully familiar. What cuts even deeper is the betrayal. Discovering that the woman who promised to walk beside him in sickness and in health may have helped create his accident, then used his disability as a ladder to climb closer to power and money. For many older Americans who have weathered divorces, broken promises, or children fighting over inheritances, That kind of betrayal is not an abstract idea. It's a wound you can still feel when the house gets too quiet at night. Yet buried inside Marcus's darkness is a powerful lesson. It is never too late to open your eyes to the truth, even if your physical sight is gone. When a skinny teenage girl named Liana, homeless and almost invisible to the world, tells him what she overheard, his wife bragging that he's finally blind and she's close to getting everything, he could have dismissed it. He could have told himself he was too old, too tired, too broken to fight. Many of us know that temptation. At my age, why rock the boat? But Marcus refuses to stay asleep. He starts listening more carefully, remembering details, quietly recording conversations, reaching out to trusted allies. He may walk with a cane, his hand shaking when he falls on the park steps, but inside he is standing up straighter than he has in years. The lesson for every older listener is simple and hard at the same time. Even late in life, you can still wake up, still draw a line, still say, "No more." Age does not erase your right to truth or your power to act on it. The people the world overlooks can carry the brightest light. If you grew up in the 1940s, 50s, or 60s, you were raised in a world that told you to respect your elders and assume wisdom always flows from the top down. Marcus's life seemed to prove that. Executive titles, corner offices, penthouse views. Yet, when his world falls apart, the person who truly saves him is not a doctor, a lawyer, or a board member. It is a teenage girl who sleeps behind a coffee shop and wraps little creek stones with bits of string. Liana has no resume, no retirement plan, no health insurance, and no one on paper would call her powerful. But she sees what others miss. She notices the way Rebecca watches the clock more than her own husband. She feels the cold flicker in Rebecca's light when danger gets close. And she is brave enough to speak up, even though a rich, angry woman could make trouble for a girl who already has nothing. For many older Americans, this may stir up memories of times when a grandchild, a young nurse, or a grocery clerk saw what your own family did not. Maybe some of the best advice you've received lately didn't come from a doctor in a white coat, but from a young neighbor who noticed you struggling with the trash cans and quietly started helping. Marcus learns that humility is not weakness, it is wisdom. He lets a child lead him, literally and spiritually. He listens when Liana tells him to prepare his heart before she tries to fix his eyes. He trusts her when she presses a small wrapped stone into his hand or places a St. Lucie medal around his neck. In a country that often measures worth in bank accounts and college degrees, their friendship reminds us that light can come from the edges, from the homeless teen, the caregiver, the overlooked helper sitting quietly in the corner. For those in their later years, the lesson is to stay open. The person who shifts your life may be someone the world barely sees, turning wounds into a legacy of light. If you've lived more than 6 decades, you already know that pain can make you bitter or it can make you better. And sometimes the line between those two is thin. Marcus could have stayed in bitterness. He had every excuse. A damaged body, a wife plotting against him, a reputation on the brink. Many older men in his position would have settled for revenge or pure survival, keeping the house, keeping the money, maybe seeing Rebecca in handcuffs and calling it a victory. But he chooses a different path, one that speaks deeply to anyone thinking about what kind of legacy they will leave behind. With Liana's courage and his own hard-earned humility, Marcus fights back just enough to stop the bleeding. He gathers evidence, stands before the board, and protects the company he built. Then, instead of clinging to control with both fists, he opens his hands. Out of the very betrayal that nearly destroyed him, he creates the light, We Carry Foundation. For seniors who worry about the future of their grandchildren's America, this part of the story offers a hopeful blueprint. Marcus takes the darkest chapter of his life and uses it to lift up kids who are living in the shadows right now. Children like Liana, ignored by systems and forgotten by budgets. He saves a struggling community center, helps keep a school from closing, and funds murals where children paint their dreams in bright blues and oranges. He invites his estranged son Aaron to coffee, not to lecture him, but to listen and rebuild. The man who once sat motionless on a park bench, treated like a burden, now walks into rooms full of young voices and says, "We see you. You matter." If you are over 65, you may not start a foundation with your name on the banner, but you can still turn your own wounds into light. You can volunteer at a school, record your life stories for your family, mentor a teenager, or simply choose forgiveness over lifelong resentment. You still hold the light and the pen. Marcus's journey from blind victim to clear-sighted elder carries a final message for every older heart listening. Your story is not over until your last breath, and even then, its light keeps traveling through the lives you've touched. You may have lost a spouse like Marcus nearly lost Rebecca long before she walked out the door. You may feel pushed aside by technology, by aches and pains, by people who assume your best days are behind you. But this story says otherwise. You can still recognize betrayal and name it. You can still welcome unexpected helpers like Liana into your life. You can still transform your pain into purpose, whether that means starting something new in your church, donating time to a shelter, or simply reaching out to repair a broken relationship while there is still time. For those of us in the later chapters, the question is no longer, "What have I lost?" but, "What light do I want to leave behind?" Marcus chose to carry his light forward, ribbon and medal resting against an aging chest that refused to quit. And so can you. So, as you sit in your favorite chair, maybe with a cup of coffee, think about this. Somewhere out there is a younger Liana watching how you handle your storms. Your courage, or your silence, will teach them what growing old looks like. Let it teach them that aging is not disappearing. It is becoming a lighthouse, weather-beaten but steady, for everyone still trying to find their way home. Friends, after walking with Marcus and Liana through betrayal, second chances, and this new foundation for forgotten kids, I'd love to hear from you. If you're in your 60s, 70s, or beyond, what part of their journey spoke most to your own life, and why? Have you ever turned a painful chapter into a light for others, maybe for your children or grandchildren? Please share your stories in the comments. Tap like if this touched you, and subscribe so you don't miss the next lessons and real life inspirations we'll explore together.